Playing with the Boss. McKenzie Brothers, Book 1. By Lexi Buchanan. Chapter 1. I lay naked on the bed, ignoring the pang of disappointment, when I heard David shuffling around in the bathroom. No doubt he was in there cleaning up after our sex session, at least that's what I'd call it. David had been having sex with me for the past 5 months, which consisted of a few open-mouthed kisses, a few licks and nibbles on my breasts, and a brief moment when he would insert a finger inside of me before he pushed himself home, leaving a trail of sweat and moans down my neck. Within seconds of entering me, he would shudder and release into the condom. I lay there feeling empty and unsatisfied, wondering what I'd done to deserve this. David and I had been together since high school, about 7 years. We were both 17 when he moved to my town, and within a week of him starting school, we were inseparable. He was my first kiss, my first date, and my first lover. Sighing, I turned and stared at the photos of our life together on the nightstand. We lived together while attending the same college, and then moved to the same city after graduation. We even worked for the same company until 2 weeks ago, when I lost my job along with 200 other employees. David was still working there, and for the past week he'd been making comments about my unemployment status, as if it was my fault that I didn't have a job. Secretly, I'd been looking for another job because I was starting to want something else. I'd actually felt relief when the company let me go. For the first time in a long time, I was free, and there was nothing David could do about it. At least that's what I thought. David, however, thought differently. My life had a constant soundtrack of how it was my fault. David told me almost daily that if I hadn't been gathering wool during department meetings, the boss wouldn't have noticed, and I wouldn't have been on the let-go list. I looked at the photo of us at the company retreat, 5 months ago. I'd noticed a change in him then. When our sex life had turned into a one-man sprint. Up until then, we'd had what I'd call a normal sex life. Not always full of passion, but there was always mutual enjoyment. Well, I could honestly say that I hadn't had an orgasm since then, and I really didn't think David cared. Not only had it started to annoy me, I found it troubling. We were still together years after all our friends had told us we wouldn't last, but I was beginning to think maybe they were right. David was my lifeline, the only family I had since my parents died in a car accident 5 years ago. I didn't have any siblings to get me through it, and I clung to David even more than before. He was my security blanket. I came to this conclusion after talking to a psychiatrist.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?